Welcome back to Newsmaker Live. Thank you for staying tuned. We're speaking here with oncologist Dr. Owen Gabriel, and we're discussing cancer because this month, as you may know, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the Yoplait lids for, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but that Yoplait lid campaign is part of the observance of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We should have had someone from Faces of Cancer with us, a survivor, to speak with us, but unfortunately that person could not make it this evening. But we're so happy to have you, doctor, and we were discussing ways to reduce the risk. I know that some cancers are genetic, or cancer is genetic in some people, but then our lifestyles, the things that we do, the things that we eat, what we are exposed to, also predisposes, or not predisposes, but makes us more vulnerable to cancer. Let's talk a bit about that.
I mean, generally, we've found that there are a number of factors that can lead to cancer. In some cases, it's about environmental exposure. So, you know, generally cancers can be, come from ultraviolet B rays of the sun. There are a number of, electromagnetic radiation,
microwaves,
and so on.
I'm afraid of those too.
Those things are exposures that you can have over a prolonged period of time. There are a number of biological organisms, bacteria, viruses that have been known to cause cancers. People would have heard of things like HPV, which is human papilloma virus. People would have heard of things like HIV, which is the virus that causes AIDS and so on, and certain other cancers. We have other things like H. pylori, which is a bacteria that some of us have, and in the lining of our stomachs can create situations of gastritis, ulcers, and certain types of cancers. So we have biological organisms that can lead to cancers. There are also a number of chemicals that have been associated with cancers, and in the majority of cases these are chemicals used in foods. One like MSG, which is monosodium glutamate, that we know is present in a lot of our boxed and canned foods, as a preservative and otherwise. There are chemicals that we use in our agriculture, herbicides and pesticides and weedicides and so on, that we've used over the years that might accumulate. In the majority of cases, these are non-biodegradable organic substances that get into our water system, that they are consumed in the ecosystem, in our rivers, in the sea by our fish, and eventually we consume the products of the soil and the products of the sea and so on, and those lead to certain types of cancer. In the majority of cases, however,
22 pictures.
In the first majority of cases, however, what we do have cancers caused by a number of lifestyle conditions. So, for instance, we know that smoking is a major cause of cancer and other diseases that are associated with morbidity and so on. So you have a number of these like emphysema, bronchitis, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, where you see those people who go around on wheelchairs with their oxygen tank and so on. But we know, some statistics show that every 8 seconds somebody dies of a smoking related illness. And certainly a number of cancers of the mouth, the oropharynx we call it, of the throat, of the lungs, the larynx, or the windpipe, the pancreas and so on, have been associated with smoking. So we know that if you don't smoke, you actually reduce your risk of cancer by 33%. And it's the same for things like alcohol consumption, which will also increase your risk for cancer.
Is it in moderation, or is it heavy drinking? When you talk about alcohol consumption, if you have a glass of wine with your meal, does that put you at as much risk as if you drink regularly?
We would say alcohol abuse. Nobody has been able to necessarily define exactly what the volume of alcohol you must consume. Obviously, culturally, people drink different amounts of alcohol, and obviously it's abuse of alcohol that we're referring to. We know that the byproduct of ethanol is acetaldehyde, which we know is a carcinogen. and will lead to, you know, multiplication of cells and increase in tumor volumes and so on. The last thing, or one of the other things that we talk about in lifestyle, is about dieting. So we know a proper diet, high in fiber, high in fruits and vegetables and green and colored stuff, you know, will be a protective factor against cancers.
But we're talking about, you know, the high fiber diet. We're talking about grains and fruits and what have you. But then, if you were to look at those food groups or those foods, and then you have to go back and consider, we might just be undermining, you know, the effect or the benefits of these foods because of the chemicals which are added to them. I mean, how can you win? Because you say, okay, I want to eat healthy, so I pick up whole grain, I pick up my fruits, I pick up my vegetables, and then I consume them, not knowing or oblivious to the fact that all of these have a whole set of chemicals on the skin, and some that have gone into the food itself. I mean, so what do you do? Do you just sit and not eat? You know, I don't know.
That's quite true. I would say that, you know, when we talk about these factors that lead to cancer, we would not say that a single factor of the groups that we've mentioned on its own and independently will cause a cancer.
Right.
So it would take a number of these conditions to come together in order to trigger the whole process of cancer. You'd have to have quite a long exposure to those chemicals in those fruits that we speak about. So, you know, if they're healthy stuff and all these chemicals are involved, your exposure would have to be prolonged and in large doses to lead to that kind of change. Notwithstanding, it is an exposure. So you do have the risk, but, you know, the benefits of those fruits probably outweigh what kind of exposure you may have with the kinds of levels you have. And the last thing that
comforting.
the last thing that we talk about is also the lack of exercise. And, you know, studies have shown that exercise actually are helpful in preventing and protecting you against cancer.
All kinds of exercise.
And absolutely. And you know, I mean, for exercise routine to be successful, we encourage people to enjoy it. You know, so I mean, if you're doing something that is monotonous to you and boring, then you may not, you know, persist. You want to do something that you enjoy, and it could be in any field, a hobby of dancing, jogging, you know, running, swimming. I must suggest
some to my wife.
Know, and so you know, anything that's helpful as far as exercise is concerned. So all of these are crucial factors that are, you know, I mean, a single one on its own will not help. You want to do all of them and you know, increase your protection factor there.
We want to take some calls in a short while, but you raised an issue during the break about, or you told me about your study with St. Mary's College in the Dennery Valley, and that was very, very interesting. Let's talk a bit about that. What did you observe in that study in Dennery?
Okay, you know, the Leon Hess Comprehensive participated in the National Science Fair.
Did I say St. Mary's College?
Leon Hess Comprehensive.
Okay, so it's Leon Hess, not St. Mary's College.
We collaborated with a group of students who looked at the sort of, you know, casual observation that a number of rare cancers occurred in particular geographical areas of St. Lucia. And we looked at the possibility of, I mean, exploring the possibility of identifying which factor could have led to those, you know, rare cancers in those particular areas, whether it is the agricultural industry in that area where a number of chemicals were used and have probably saturated the land and the water and whatever the case may be. Is there some other environmental epidemiological issue going on? And there were other areas in the country, you know, Dennery, there was Choiseul and so on. But I mean, these are not concrete studies, and we're not saying anything in particular.
Right.
This is a casual observation, and we look to try to you know, describe what kinds of conditions existed other things may be happening elsewhere in the country, but that was just one of the casual observations. And you know, what it says is that there's a need for research in our country. There's a need for us to look at, you know, some of these factors that we have. And as I mentioned earlier on, starting a cancer registry on island will help to, you know, organize the data. You know, so we get some demographic data, we get some clinical data that will help us look at some of those variables and then apply, you know, some interventions accordingly.
Are we paying enough attention to cancer on the island as a country? I know that this is your field, so you know it gets your attention every single day. But generally, do we just wait until we have a problem for us to react? Or are we taking the necessary preventative measures to ensure that we do not fall victim, if we can?
Your question can be applied at so many levels. You know, are we paying enough attention as individuals who are at risk for developing cancer? I'd say no, you know, and it's a general condition of health issues as far as it is concerned. You know, are people concerned about high blood pressure and diabetes and strokes and kidney disease and so on? I don't think so. Good health is an investment. It's a lifestyle. It's not a you know, one day, one moment, you know, thing, or you know, something that happens in October. Because we're in October, I'm going to have my mammogram and I'm going to do my breast self-examination. It has to be something that is constant, and you have to be aware of what your objectives are. So that's one level of, as individuals, our responsibility to ourselves and to our families and to our colleagues and our communities. On the other hand, we also have are we doing enough at the level of our organizations, our institutions, you know, our health institutions, our NGOs, and are we doing something at the level of policy, so that, you know, we can look into, you know, the government agencies that are involved with cancer, and how they impact on the whole you know, distribution of resources to address it, whether it's through sensitization, and you know, how we give access to treatment for cancer and so on. So I think that your question is very relevant and very important for each of us in our different spheres to look at how we address cancer.
Yeah, so it has to be a personal thing, you know. It has to start with the individual, and then we can spread it out to the, you know, more the larger community and then the island. Just to let you know that on there you are viewing a slide presentation on cancer, and just want to warn you that some of those images are very graphic, and we would advise you to exercise discretion when you're viewing those. If you have a weak stomach, or if you cannot take on the gore of blood and medical stuff, then please do not watch. You can listen to us, and also there's some very good information coming up on the screen. So I'm hoping that you're able to multitask and read and listen to us at the same time, because a lot of this can help you as you try to prevent an onset of cancer if you're not in that position as yet. So we'll continue to share the information with you, show you the slides so that you can be educated. I too need to be educated about cancer, because it is scary. We're going to open up the lines as well, so we can take some calls and some questions for Dr. Gabriel. So we'll put the number on the screen, and you can call in. I know this month we're focusing on breast cancer. However, prostate cancer is another big issue, and of course prostate cancer affects men. Most men, it is advised that, you know, you undergo a prostate exam before you're 40. But we have a call. Let's just take this call and then we'll continue. Good evening. Go ahead with your question, please, caller.
Good evening, Clinton, and good evening to your guest, Dr. Gabriel. My question is that I recently received an article about women consuming soy milk, and that if women have used this over a long period of time, that there's a likelihood of that woman developing cancer What is is there any truth behind this? Can you please provide some clarification?
Thanks for your question.
Yes. Well, I mean, the controversy about of milk has been long going. First, the question of dairy products and cancers, has extensive attention in the media and the health experts and so on. Clearly, because of the hormones that are present in that milk, as well as the toxic substances that may be present in there, from the cows consuming agricultural areas that may be infested with other types of chemicals. On the other hand, soy milk has particular properties that may trigger growth of particular types of cancer cells. So I've read that, for instance, for breast cancer, soy milk may not be the most appropriate milk to consume. However, there are certain types of cancers that you want to consume soy milk to replace or substitute for dairy products. So, I mean, the evidence is not very clear, and there are still controversies, and I suppose, the discussion is still ongoing. We don't have a very clear picture of what's supposed to obtain in these cases, but certainly, you want to make the right choice, and, it's a fact-finding question. You research on it and see which one is more appropriate for, the person.
Good evening. Thanks for holding. Please go ahead with your question, caller.
Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Good night.
Guy.
I'm talking about breast cancer.
Caller, can you please lower the volume on your set?
Yes.
Okay,
Now,
go ahead, please.
there is no cure for cancer, is there? And I myself had a prostate cancer, and then I cured it. I made a medication. I get the medication. I believe God gave me the medication, and I have shared it with different people, and also the breast cancer, and I know that I have the cure for it.
You're sitting on a gold mine there, then, caller.
Yes, that's right. I have the cure for it. My grand uncle was curing the breast cancer, and I have the medication for breast cancer and prostate cancer, any cancer. I have the drink, what you could drink that could prevent the blood from spoiling your organs. When you drink it, you stop your cancer cells from spreading, and then when you rub, it cures the cancer.
Okay, thanks a lot for your contribution, caller.
Well, I mean, I clearly, I was trained in conventional medicine, and I do not doubt the role of alternative medicine in health generally. I believe there's a role for alternative medicine, and whether it's a complementary role otherwise, I cannot say that I've been persuaded by tests or otherwise studies that there's any cure for cancer from the alternative methods of interventions. But certainly I think there's a role for it if it's done in a very scientific and rational way.
You're watching Newsmaker Live. I'm here with Dr. Owen Gabriel. He is an oncologist. He is with the Cancer Center at Tapia and also a consultant at VH. We'll take a break right now. When we come back, we'll continue with your calls and also the discussion on Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're talking breast cancer specifically, but cancer in general. Stay with us.